Right now, parked in driveways all across America, millions of pickup trucks are breaking the law, not because of how they're driven, because of what's bolted onto them. A retired welder in Ohio learned this when a routine stop over a headlight turned into a stack of equipment violations on a Silverado he'd owned for 11 years. He hadn't changed a thing since 2019. The laws changed around him. In at least 24 states, the penalties on this list can stack past $5,000, and a couple of these can cost you your license entirely. I'd bet fewer than 1 in 100 truck owners could name even 3 of them. So today we're counting down 10 truck features that are banned or restricted across huge parts of the country, and at least one of them is probably sitting on your truck right now. And number 1, it's the loudest thing on this list, and it announces its own violation from a quarter-mile away. Quick note before we start. Laws vary by state and they change every legislative session, so treat this as your starting point, not legal advice. Check your own state's code before you spend money or fight a ticket. All right, let's get into it. Number 10, LED bulb swaps in halogen headlight housings. Walk into any parts store or scroll any online marketplace, and you'll find LED conversion kits promising to triple your light output for $40. Pop out the old halogen bulb, plug in the LED, done. Millions of truck owners have made this exact swap, especially guys with older F-150s and Rams, whose factory halogens have gone dim and yellow with age. It feels like basic maintenance. The problem is physics. A halogen reflector housing was engineered around the precise position of a halogen filament. An LED chip sits in a different spot and throws light in a different pattern, so the reflector scatters that light everywhere, including straight into the eyes of oncoming drivers. That's why the overwhelming majority of these plug-in kits are not DOT compliant, and running non-compliant headlights on a public road is an equipment violation in essentially every state. Federal regulators have even gone after companies selling these kits for road use. In practice, that means fix-it tickets, failed state inspections in inspection states, and in some places fines north of $100 per light. Small money compared to what's coming later in this list, sure. But the real cost shows up when you blind a driver on a dark 2-lane road. If you want brighter light, buy a complete DOT-approved LED headlight assembly designed for your truck or quality halogen bulbs. The cheap kit is cheap for a reason. And if you think a $40 bulb causing trouble sounds bad, wait until you hear what your winter tires might be doing. Number 9. Studded snow tires run out of season. If you grew up driving in Minnesota, Montana, or upstate New York, studded tires were just part of winter. Little carbide pins biting into glare ice when nothing else would. What a lot of drivers never learned is that those studs are illegal for large chunks of the year in most states, and completely illegal year-round in others. Texas, Mississippi, and several southern states ban metal studs outright. Northern states like Washington and Oregon give you a legal window, roughly November through March, and running studs outside those dates is a citation, sometimes assessed per tire. Why do states care so much? Pavement. Studded tires chew asphalt like a cheese grater. Washington state alone has estimated the damage to its highways in the tens of millions of dollars every single year. And you can see the evidence yourself in the worn ruts grooved into the right lane of any interstate in stud country. Those ruts collect rainwater and cause hydroplaning in summer, which means winter traction is quietly creating a summer hazard. The trap catches 2 kinds of drivers: snowbirds who head south for the winter with studs still mounted, rolling through states where they're banned entirely, and busy guys who just never get around to swapping back in April. A trooper who hears that telltale clicking on dry pavement in June has an easy stop. Modern studless winter tires have closed most of the traction gap anyway, so for a lot of drivers, the studs aren't even buying much. Now, number 8 is one I guarantee half of you are guilty of, because I was too. Number 8, the hitch ball blocking your license plate. Take a walk through any church parking lot on Sunday and count the pickups with a ball mount sitting in the receiver, boat long since parked, trailer nowhere in sight. It just lives there. The problem is that on a lot of trucks, That ball sits directly in front of the rear license plate, and obstructed plate laws in the majority of states say every character on that plate must be clearly visible and legible. A chrome ball covering one digit technically puts you in violation, and officers in states like Texas, Florida, and Tennessee genuinely do write these tickets. Enforcement got serious for a specific reason. Toll roads and police cruisers now run automated license plate readers, cameras that scan thousands of plates an hour. A blocked digit defeats the camera, and states started treating anything that obscures a plate the same way they treat those smoked plastic plate covers and spray-on glare treatments, which are banned almost everywhere and which, by the way, don't actually beat toll cameras despite what the packaging implies. Fines typically run from around $50 to a couple $100, but in some states, an obscured plate can be a misdemeanor on repeat offenses. The fix costs nothing. Pull the ball mount, toss it behind the seat, and slide it back in when you're actually towing. Your shins will thank you too, because every truck owner alive has cracked a kneecap on that thing walking past the tailgate. But while a hitch ball might cost you $100, the next feature is the one that gets your truck ordered off the road on the spot. Number 7. Windshield tint below the AS1 line. Window tint laws are the ones truck owners argue about most, and the windshield is where almost everybody gets it wrong. Every state allows some tint on your side and rear windows, with darkness limits that swing wildly from Vermont to Arizona. But the windshield itself is nearly untouchable. The general rule across the country is that tint can only come down to the AS1 line, that little marking near the top of the glass, or roughly the top 5 or 6 inches. A visor strip and nothing more. Drop a full sheet of film down that windshield, even a light one, and you're illegal in almost all 50 states. Plenty of guys in Arizona, Texas, and Florida do it anyway because a west-facing commute in July is genuinely brutal, and the aftermarket happily sells them 70% ceramic film with a wink. The ticket starts small, often a fix-it citation requiring proof of removal. But repeat offenses escalate. In some states, a second or third tint conviction becomes a misdemeanor with fines in the hundreds and a court date attached, and officers can pull you over for tint alone, no other reason needed. It's one of the most common pretext stops in the country. There is a legal path a surprising number of older drivers qualify for. Medical exemptions exist in most states for light sensitivity conditions, certain medications, and skin cancer history, which matters for a generation that spent decades working outside. It requires a doctor's letter and paperwork filed with the state, and the certificate rides in your glove box. Do it the legal way and that same tint becomes untouchable. And speaking of blinding light, the next item is the mod that made every farmer on a 2-lane road furious. Number 6. Off-road light bars uncovered on public roads. Somewhere around 2015, the LED light bar took over. 50-inch curved bars across the roof, cube lights on the A-pillars, more on the bumper, until half the trucks at the gas station looked ready to land aircraft. And to be fair, out on a ranch road or a hunting lease at night, they're fantastic. Legitimately useful equipment. But here's what the guy at the accessory counter never mentions. In a long list of states, those bars are classified as auxiliary off-road lighting, and the law doesn't just prohibit turning them on around traffic. States like Michigan and a number of others require the bar to be covered with an opaque cover anytime the truck is on a public road, even switched off. The logic being that an uncovered bar can't accidentally or deliberately be flipped on into oncoming traffic. Plenty of owners have collected equipment tickets for a bar that was never illuminated. And actually, lighting one up on a highway with output that can pass 30,000 lumens is a moving violation everywhere, with fines commonly in the $100 to $500 range and civil liability waiting behind it if you dazzle someone into a ditch. The rule of thumb that keeps you clean in every state I know of is simple. Covers on and switches off on pavement. Party lights on when you leave the pavement. A set of vinyl covers costs $20. Cheap insurance. And notice who paid in that story. The parts counter made the sale, the packaging said off-road use only, and the ticket went to the driver. Keep that in mind. because it's the pattern under every item left on this list. Now we're at the halfway mark, and this is where the fines stop being pocket change and start hitting titles, licenses, and federal law. Number 5. Suspension lifts over your state's height limit. Nothing says American pickup like a lifted truck, and a sensible lift is perfectly legal in every state. The trap is that every state defines sensible differently, and the differences are enormous. Some states measure frame height, some measure bumper height, some measure headlight height, and some measure all three with different numbers for different vehicle weights. A truck that's completely legal in Wyoming can be an equipment violation the moment it crosses into a neighboring state on a fishing trip. Take bumper height. Several states cap it around the mid-20-inch range for light trucks, and a big lift with 37-inch tires can blow past that without the owner ever measuring. Headlight height is the one almost nobody checks. Federal standards put headlights no higher than 54 inches from the ground, and a serious lift pushes lamps right to that ceiling, which is exactly why lifted trucks catch so much flack for searing the mirrors of every sedan they follow. Fines for over-limit height typically start around $100 to $300, but the expensive part is the order to bring the truck into compliance, which can mean unbolting thousands of dollars in suspension work, and in strict inspection states the truck simply fails until you do. There's a safety story under the paperwork. Bumper height laws exist because in a crash, a bumper at grill height on a Corolla rides straight over the car's crash structure. That's not nanny state fiction, it's crash physics. Quick pause here. If you're finding this useful, take 1 second and hit subscribe. I cover truck laws, buying mistakes, and the stuff dealers won't tell you every single week. And the next video is one you'll want to see before you buy another used truck. Now that same crash physics is behind number 4. The only truck trend I know of that got banned in multiple states by near unanimous votes. Number 4. The Carolina squat. You've seen it even if you didn't know the name. Front end jacked toward the sky, rear end slammed toward the pavement, the whole truck angled like a speedboat coming on plane. It started in California desert racing culture, blew up on social media in the Carolinas, and by 2020, squatted trucks were everywhere in the Southeast. And then, faster than almost any vehicle trend in memory, states started outlawing it by name. North Carolina moved first, banning the stance in late 2021 with a law that revokes your license after 3 convictions inside 12 months. Virginia followed in 2022, and that one has a grim story behind it. In February of that year, a squatted truck crossed the center line and killed a 27-year-old man, and the driver's sight line over that raised hood was central to the case. The bill passed almost immediately afterward. South Carolina came next with fines that escalate to $300 and license suspension for repeat offenses, and several other states have taken up similar bills. The reason lawmakers who agree on nothing agreed on this is visibility. Raise the front of a truck 4 inches or more above the rear, and the hood eats the road directly in front of you. Drivers of squatted trucks have admitted they can't see a car, let alone a child within a truck length of the front bumper, and the headlights point at the treetops all night. Whatever you think of the look, and truck forums have opinions, this one earned its ban the hard way. But number 3 is the first item on our list where the fines come from Washington, and they're measured in the thousands. Number 3, emissions deletes and rolling coal. For 20 years, the fastest way to wake up a diesel pickup was the delete. Pull the diesel particulate filter, gut the EGR, flash a tune, and your Duramax or Power Stroke picks up power, fuel economy, and reliability. Or at least that's the pitch that sold hundreds of thousands of delete kits. Some owners took it further, tuning trucks to dump raw fuel and belch black smoke on command. Rolling coal, usually aimed at a Prius or a cyclist for laughs. The federal government stopped laughing a while ago. Tampering with emissions equipment violates the Clean Air Act, and the penalty schedule is not a traffic ticket. For an individual, each tampering violation can run to roughly $4,800, and shops that perform deletes face penalties an order of magnitude higher. The EPA has spent the past several years hammering the diesel tuning industry, shutting down some of the biggest names in the business, and collecting multi-million-dollar settlements. On top of the federal layer, states piled on. New Jersey wrote a rolling coal fine into law years ago, Colorado made it a traffic offense, and states with emissions testing will simply refuse to register a deleted truck. A few owners have discovered at trade-in time that a deleted truck is worth thousands less because the dealer legally has to restore it. I get the frustration. Early emission systems on these trucks were genuinely troublesome, and owners felt like beta testers. But the current legal reality is brutal and getting stricter every year. And unlike a tint ticket, this one follows the truck through every sale. Which brings us to number 2. A gadget that moves the fines from the EPA to the FCC. Number 2, radar jammers and laser jammers. Radar detectors, the classic dash-mounted variety that just listen, are legal in passenger vehicles in every state except Virginia, plus Washington, D.C. That surprises people by itself. But detectors have a more aggressive cousin, and this is where drivers get into real trouble. A jammer doesn't listen. It transmits, actively interfering with the officer's radar or LiDAR gun to hide your speed. Radar jammers are banned nationwide under federal communications law, full stop, because they broadcast interference on licensed frequencies. The FCC treats them the way it treats any illegal transmitter, and penalties for jamming devices can start in the 5-figure range, over $10,000 for a first offense, with the worst cases climbing past $100,000. Laser jammers occupy a stranger gray zone. Because they emit light rather than radio waves, the FCC doesn't regulate them, so they're technically legal in a number of states. But California, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, and Virginia have banned them at the state level, and in some of those states using one is a misdemeanor, not an infraction. An officer whose LiDAR gun reads error, error, error while a pickup sails past has a very good idea of what's mounted behind that grill. Here's the part that would be funny if it weren't expensive. Independent testing has repeatedly shown that plenty of jammers barely work against modern police LiDAR anyway. So drivers are risking federal-grade penalties for a device that may not even do the job. If you want a legal edge, a good detector and a light right foot remain undefeated. And that leaves number 1. The feature I promised you, the loudest item anywhere on this list, and the one that announces its own violation from a quarter mile away. Number 1. Train horns. There is something deeply American about the sound of a locomotive horn, and somewhere along the line, truck owners decided their pickups should make it. Real train horns, actual cast locomotive equipment or faithful replicas, mounted under the bed with an air tank and compressor producing around 150 decibels. For reference, that's louder than a jet at takeoff distance, well past the threshold of physical pain, and roughly 40 decibels beyond a factory truck horn. The kits are completely legal to buy, and the videos of drivers blasting them at unsuspecting pedestrians rack up millions of views. Actually using one on a public road is another matter entirely. State vehicle codes across the country regulate horns 2 ways, and a train horn usually fails both. First, most states require a horn to be audible from a set distance, but prohibit sounds that are unreasonably loud or harsh, and several states cap horn output at levels a train horn triples. Second, nearly every state restricts horn use to warnings necessary for safe operation, which makes blasting one as a prank a violation no matter what horn you're running. California's vehicle code, to give one example, flatly prohibits horns that produce an unreasonably loud sound, and officers there and in states like Florida and Texas have been writing train horn tickets for years. Fines typically run from around $100 to $500 per stop. They repeat every time you're caught. And there's a genuine safety charge available if a blast startles another driver into a crash. A sound at that level can cause immediate, permanent hearing damage to a pedestrian standing nearby, and people have pursued exactly those claims. So there's your countdown. 10 features. And it's the same pattern I pointed out back at the light bars, running under every single item. The parts are legal to sell, the packaging says off-road use only in letters nobody reads, and the driver becomes the one holding the liability. The accessory industry gets the sale, you get the ticket. Knowing that puts you ahead of the crowd at every parts counter in America. Before you spend another dollar on your truck, spend 10 minutes with your state's vehicle code. And since laws like the squat bans are spreading state by state every single year, subscribe right now. Because next week I'm covering the used truck options that quietly disappeared, features you could order 20 years ago that manufacturers aren't allowed to sell you anymore. If your truck is older than your grandkids, that one's going to sting a little. See you there.